Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Good morning. This is Ellen in sunny Philadelphia, having survived yesterday's deluge. Today, we are discussing lighting designer fashion, show me the money, the end of the AutoYoke, and what to do at LDI, all on Light Talk.
And this is David coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers.
And SISTAH.
Oh, yes, we can't forget about that. Why do I always forget about that?
I don't know.
It's crazy. I just keep saying brothers, and you or Ann has to say SISTAH.
Right.
Don't forget about us. We'll never forget about you because actually you control everything, especially today, thank God. So welcome everyone to episode 231. Wow, 231. Can you imagine?
You guys are amazing.
It just keeps going. It's like the Energizer Bunny.
Yeah, it just keeps going until the power runs out. And today, as you know, we have our dear Lumen sister, Ellen Lampett-Grayo, with us. So Ellen, how are things in Hurricane Alley?
Well, oddly enough, we skirted them so far in St. Bart's, so I had to fly to Philadelphia on Monday to find pounding rain, thunderous thunder, and lightning all day and all night Tuesday. The irony of it all.
Wow.
I mean, it sounds to me like Ida hit you in St. Bart, passed on, and you said, honey, let's get ahead of that storm and do it all over again.
Actually, we missed it in St. Bart, so we said, well, that's a shame. Let's catch up with it someplace else.
I mean, what happened? I mean, did you get as bad flooding as New York got last night? I couldn't believe it. The subways, it looked like the Poseidon Adventure.
Well, actually, at around, 10 o'clock at night, my daughter tried to drive home from work, and she couldn't get through. The roads were all flooded. Cars were abandoned everywhere. And apparently, just a few miles from here, there was a tornado that flattened buildings completely. So we were really lucky. This street didn't even get a lot of rain, but no flooding, no branches down. We were really lucky. But apparently it hit really, really hard in a lot of places. Annapolis, Maryland, apparently got really pounded.
Well, anyway, it's great that you're safe, and hopefully all of our friends in New York and Philadelphia and the surrounding areas are safe. You know, besides the floods and hurricane, who was that, Ida? Was that the name of the hurricane?
Yep, Ida.
I think so.
That was my grandmother's name.
Well, there you go.
That was big news, but we have even more big news today. Big news this week. After 20 years of service, City Theatrical ends production of the AutoYoke.
No.
The AutoYoke.
Oh, the humanity. What's next? Two-scene preset consoles, power cans, color scrollers? Where does it stop?
Don't be so cynical. The AutoYoke actually was used quite a bit, especially on Broadway. There was no front-of-house truss on Broadway that did not have at least 3 AutoYokes on it. And what the AutoYoke was, for our listeners who do not know, maybe some of our younger listeners who said, why the hell did they do that? What the hell did that do? Well, it enabled the Source 4 ellipsoidal reflector spotlight to be a moving light. You could actually hook it up to this mechanized yoke sort of thing called the AutoYoke, and you could remotely pan it and tilt it. This was before quiet moving lights were invented. Because, we had moving lights 20 years ago, but they were too noisy, especially to hang in front of house. So we used AutoYokes. And like I said, it was used on Broadway a lot. I used them in opera. The official press release from City Theatrical says, we are retiring our AutoYoke, the first automated lighting solution designed for theatrical use, after playing an important part in professional lighting for over 20 years. We brought the AutoYoke to the market in 1999 as the first automated lighting solution designed for theatrical use at the request of Broadway designer Brian McDevitt. So we can thank Brian for all this. Thanks, Brian. We formed an engineering team to develop the product to be a precision moving yoke designed to hold a Source 4 that would give designers an incandescent-sourced, hard-edged, refocusable fixture. It was a niche that had not been filled in the moving light world, but was of critical importance to Broadway lighting designers. So, that actually is a good point about it being an incandescent light, because moving lights back then, there weren't that many incandescent moving lights. And to get the correct color rendering, you really need that incandescent source. So what do you think? Are we going to miss the AutoYoke?
I was just going to say there's about 1 million Source 4s still out there. So if they have AutoYokes, I hope that City Theatrical will be servicing them. And it still seems to me a rather low-cost, good solution for schools and small community theaters that have that kind of equipment.
Well, particularly if you go ahead and put an auto iris inside it too. So you can have that hard edge, and then you can iris and expand the pool of light. And if you throw a color scroller on that thing, it's a pretty wicked little device.
Right. You don't always need all the bells and whistles of a moving light. It's proven on Broadway during those years. A lot of great lighting designs used AutoYokes, and without all the bells and whistles. But yeah, I'm going to kind of miss them because they were kind of foolproof. I mean, they were built like tanks. So I don't know many failures of AutoYokes, or else they wouldn't have been on Broadway. That's for damn sure. So we tip our caps to the AutoYoke, and thank you, City Theatrical, and thank you, Brian McDevitt. So Steve has our first listener question.
And it comes from Alfred in Virginia. And he writes, so how can I take my theater skills and make money in non-theater gigs? Please don't tell me to go draft for someone or to work in architecture.
Go draft for someone, kid.
Well, you need to kind of get a piece of paper and write down all the things you know and you can do. And I bet I've got a little list here of a few of them. Some we'll spend a little time chatting on, and some don't need to be explored too deeply. But you can probably use Photoshop. So that means you can do some photo editing. You probably have a good idea of space and composition. So there might be some hay to make in working with an interior designer. You certainly know about scheduling and running a crew and time management. So there's something there. Maybe you need to explore the mega churches and even the small churches in your community now. Most of them have webcast. So maybe you can go in there and make a real difference with a ring light. Community access television, that's a good place if you don't know a lot about video to start developing your skills in video. Ad agencies, trade shows. You can go through the Yellow Pages and start looking at all the companies who might need someone like you. I mean, I did that once. I was out of work. I just went through the Yellow Pages, writing down everyone who could use my abilities. Right now, the State Fair of Texas is about to start. It's not going to help you today, but here at the State Fair, we have 3 or 4 very large buildings in which big trade shows are done. So I can go to the State Fair of Texas and I can see car shows. I can see dealerships there. I can see farm equipment. They're all lit. There are trusses up in the air. There's moving lights panning around. Take a business card with you and go to your State Fair maybe and say, I want to do your show next year. But the thing that you may not be considering as a short-term kind of that you can do this right now, I would get your resume together and some business cards, and I would go talk to your independent school district. I would go talk to them about everything from kindergarten to high school. And most schools cannot afford to have a full-time lighting designer or set designer or TD, but they can afford to bring someone in on a show-to-show basis. And most of these schools do 3 or 4 shows a year. So these might be gigs that you've never considered, and they generally pay pretty well. Maybe put together a proposal, and you're going to do 3 or 4 workshops in the school district. And you're going to teach primarily actors who are teaching in high schools. You're going to teach them how to program a console, how to actually set their shows up. I mean, they need help doing this. They're perfectly good at teaching acting classes and teaching directing classes and staging a show. But when it comes to actually putting it on stage, it's a long day if you're there by yourself. And again, as an independent contractor, as a gig worker, this is something schools can wrap their head around because they're not paying you health insurance and retirement, but they could easily pay you $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 to come in and do a show. It's an untapped market that we just don't consider. Maybe we have our nose in the air a little bit about elementary schools and high schools. But any place you can work is a place you can work, and you're going to learn some skills. What about you, David?
No, I think all of your suggestions are right on. I mean, it's hard for me to think of any more, to tell you the truth. I see a lot of people who have moved on to lighting companies. A lot of my students actually work at ETC, which is, one of the obviously largest lighting companies. A lot of some of my former students work with Strand. Some of my former students work with Martin. It's really a great place to be because you're in on the technology. If you're really a technology head, that's really a great place to go. And you could still work and do your, fun gigs in the evening, which is one of the great things about architecture is that, you can work the 9 to 5 gig, which is usually what an architectural job is, and then do theater in the evening. That's, what most of my students do. Because everyone needs to, pay the rent. And in California, the rent is pretty damn high. So, you may be, it's sort of like, California now is sort of like what New York used to be, where you'd pay this ridiculous amount of money for like a closet. And you're sharing it with like 3 other people. So, it's getting like that in California right now. It's very difficult to live here. So you always need a job. And like I always say, I'd rather have a job in architectural lighting or with a manufacturer or rental company than working at In-N-Out Burger. I just think it's you're going to meet a lot more people in the business that are going to help you get gigs, or you're going to be doing some programming for corporate gigs, and then your chops are getting better as a programmer, and you're getting better as a lighting designer. So that's ideally the type of training that you can continue and actually not just depend on your lighting gigs. Now, Ellen, I'm really interested in what you have to say about this because you have a lot of connections with other industries as well.
Well, yeah, I was going to suggest things like clubs. You could go into some local club and find a band that's just starting out, that's getting a really good reputation. And then you could end up being, like Willie Williams with U2 for the rest of your career, or Bruce Springsteen and Jeff Ravitz, or John Broderick and Metallica. And they all started out with these bands when it was like, okay, carry that to the truck and do some lighting on the side, and became wonderful careers. There's also theme parks, cruise ships. All of those hire AV techs, lighting designers, video people. So there's a lot of work in those areas as well. The cruise industry is trying to get back on its feet, or back at sea, as it were. And the theme parks are reopening and rehiring. So there's a lot of options there as well. All right. I have a question from Tammy from Oregon, who says, "This will be my first LDI. I will be there Friday and Saturday. What should I do? I want to take advantage of free stuff, and I do have a budget for paid workshops. And can you advise on a show? This is also my first trip to Vegas." Well, let's go backwards here a second.
Wait a second. First of all, we got the first trip to Vegas, and you're going
right.
I'm going to go ahead and go to lunch while you answer this. I'll be back in an hour.
God, this is going to be crazy. Okay, go, Ellen.
Well, advise on a show. I would say if it's your first trip to Vegas, you have to go to Cirque du Soleil.
Absolutely.
I would suggest Ka, O, or Mystère, which are the sort of 3 stalwarts, as it were, of their resident shows. I believe all 3 are up and running again. O, of course, is the one with the gigantic swimming pool in the middle. Ka is the one with the floating stage. It's like a tatami mat that moves on a articulated hydraulic wrist, so it can go up, down, right, left, flat in front of you, and becomes a huge projection screen, which is nothing else like it in the world. And Mystère is just sort of classic Cirque du Soleil, sort of the bridge between their wonderful touring shows and bringing things inside. That one sort of, manifested itself that way, one of the earlier shows in Vegas. So I would do that, definitely advising on a show. Budget for paid workshops is interesting because you can go about that several ways. One is to go on the LDI website and look under the LD Institute and the LD Intensives, which are all of the individually ticketed events where you can do everything from hands-on lighting consoles, hands-on media servers, electrical courses with Richard Cadena, electrical courses with Lex Products, all sorts of different companies that lead manufacturer-led training. There's an Ethernet for entertainment class. There's A to Z of project management. There's a hybrid Horizons about hybrid production, virtual production with Bob Boniol. These are all like half day to full day to 2-day, even a 3-day Grand MA training course, all of which are individually ticketed. So depending on your niche and your budget, you'll find a lot of stuff in there. The other thing to do, paid, is either a conference badge or a 6-pack of conference tickets that allow you to go to all of the sessions that are 30 to 90 minutes on a wide variety of topics, depending on your interest: rigging, lighting, staging, XR, virtual production, you name it. We sort of probably have a session on it. Friday and Saturday, basically you're going to have a hard time getting off the show floor because there's so much going on there. But if you want to take advantage of free stuff, your exhibit hall badge includes 3 new technology breakfasts, one on Friday for lighting. That's 2 hours from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. when the show floor opens. There are round-robin loudspeaker demos. There's some LDI Amplify, which is audio training right on the show floor. There's an LDI Awards reception on Saturday evening. There's some live for broadcast tech talks, also probably on the show floor. There are some exhibitor-sponsored sessions, info sessions with nonprofits like ETCP. There are 3 sessions presented about safety by the Event Safety Alliance and getting back to work after the pandemic. There's an industry party in the Circle Bar that no longer exists at the former Hard Rock Hotel, but
So
now exists on.
So where's it going to be?
It's on the show floor, and Andrew Gumper of AG Productions is recreating it right before our very eyes.
I love it. I love it.
And of course, there is a podcast with the Lumen Brothers live at
And
LDI.
SISTAHs.
So if you get just a floor pass, there is a huge exhibit hall to visit, and all of those goodies come in your bag.
Well, there's also, you left out the walkthrough. There's going to be a sunrise walkthrough of the exhibit hall. Where the hell is David Jacques? And if you can find him, he will buy you a drink and a slice of pizza.
You're not going to find me on the exhibit hall. You better check out the Circle Bar, what used to be the Circle Bar, or someplace on the streets of Las Vegas.
It'll be at
That's
5
where I'll be.
a.m.
It'll be someplace that's not there. Yes. Okay. The Lumen Brothers and SISTAHs are having a special live podcast on Saturday. What is it, at 5 o'clock? I think it's 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock's kind of risky because we might put you right off your dinner. I mean, that's a problem.
Well, that's true. What's happy hour? It's happy
that's
hour.
okay. That's
and
better.
I've been trying to get Ellen to okay a bar in there, like free drinks. But
You bring
I don't
the
think we can
check, I'll
afford
bring
it.
the bar.
Okay, so we have our own happy hour there. Anyway, there you go. And what else? Oh, we forgot to say that we have a special Lumen secret password code that will allow you to have free registration for the floor and also all those other goodies that Ellen just said. And Ellen, can I give this out? I tried it and it worked.
Sure.
So is it all right?
Sure.
Okay, kids. Here is the special Lumen secret password code. Get out your decoder rings. I'm only going to say this once. Ready? JICEXH3. That's Juliet, Indigo, Charlie, Echo, X-Ray, Hotel 3. That's right. Check it out. You will get free admission into the showroom floor and, of course, the live broadcast of Light Talk with the Lumen Brothers and SISTAH. So use that when you register, because I asked for a promo code. Just put that in and you should get all that for free. All right. Oh, there was one other thing you said, Ellen, that I was a little bit, I don't know. What, you don't like love?
Oh, I forgot about love. Yes, love is also wonderful. Love.
Love is important,
conquers
Ellen.
all. Love conquers all.
Love conquers all. The Cirque show Love, which I love.
Yes, I also love Love. It's newer. I don't know. I sort of, honed in on those three, but Love is also wonderful, especially if you're a Beatles fan. And it's interesting because the more you know about Beatles lore, about their mother, their father, when they were born, World War II, hippies, 70s, psychedelia, India, gurus, the more you get out of the show.
Gurus.
Well, it's really funny because the last time I saw Love, it starts with the Blitz during the beginning of World War II when they were born. And some millennial next to me is like, what's happening? What's going on here? Because they never heard of World War II, much less, the Blitz. So the more you know, the more you know. It's a wonderful show, really wonderful, wonderful show. And the lighting designer for that was Canadian Eve O'Quan, who really did an exceptional job, because what's interesting about that theater is it's where Siegfried and Roy used to be. So it was a proscenium theater, and they took the proscenium out, the stage out. There's this like massive, it's like a pit, I guess, where different platforms rise up and down throughout the show and different levels of that. So it's really sort of theater in the round, although the seats are odd because it wasn't really a round space. So there's some little wedges of seats here and there. So it was particularly hard to light. And there's also massive video screens that run on each side. So, he had a lot of challenges in lighting that show, and I think he did a really great job. It's really, really fun.
He did. And the video design is also spectacular.
Yeah, awesome.
And just watching, my favorite moment of that show, there's so many. Day in the Life is great, but also Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds is just some of the best LED programming I've ever seen. And it's simple and it's brilliant. So, and great props.
Yeah, great props.
Great props in that show too. Yeah.
Especially the lighting in that Octopus's Garden number. Is really, really beautiful. So if you're in Vegas for enough time to go out 4 nights in a row, there's 4 great shows.
There are.
I'm sorry to say that along with the AutoYoke, Las Vegas has also retired Le Rêve, which was also a wonderful show. That was a swimming pool show at the Wynn. And that theater has gone away, which is really tragic. But what can you do?
I had seen so many Cirque shows, and the last time I was in Vegas, I decided to see the one show that I hadn't seen was Zoomanity, because I always thought, maybe it sounds like kind of cheapy, sort of sexy show sort of thing. And I loved it. I thought it was very well done. So you're not going to go wrong with Cirque, except the Michael Jackson show. I am not a fan.
Well, I think that... the Michael Jackson show and some of the shows that have already closed, like the Elvis Presley show and the Chris Angel show. But, a company like that sort of, I guess they experiment with different things, and some make it and some don't,
Yeah, considering their track record, they're doing pretty well. So, yes. All right. So let's move on. So Robert from Boston writes, I have a fashion question. I am designing my first real professional show with union stagehands, and I am trying to decide what to wear. Should I go casual and dress down like the stagehands, like a t-shirt, jeans, sneakers, or go the other direction? Dress a little classy, sports coat, nice shirt, maybe some nice slacks and polished shoes. Can you advise for both focus and cue writing?
Is it good? Well, hang on. Is it after Labor Day? That's everything. If it's after,
is that a white thing?
Yeah, it's after Labor Day.
You can't dress white.
Right.
Yeah. I did that once, and I never understood that. I mean, does that have something to do with farms? I don't know. Anyway, so let's get back to the question. Fashion. It's kind of a serious question, to tell you the truth, because who do you want to be associated with? I mean, a lot of people like dressing down a bit so that they feel more comfortable with people who are in work clothes and practical clothes, like people who are doing dangerous jobs on stage. You know what I mean? You're not going to wear, slippery, shoes and or nice pants because you're going to be like rubbing stuff on them all the time. And then you're out in the house, with the creative team, and especially costume designers who dress usually very nicely, and set designers, not all set designers, but most, and certainly the director, not all directors, but most, dress really nicely. So what do? I don't know. I kind of say be yourself, but always dress for success. How you like that? Be yourself, dress however you want, but make sure that it looks good.
Well, there's an old adage, the clothes make the man. Is that true?
It makes the woman.
Ah, well.
The clothes make the women. Yeah.
I know. It's another thing. Like, women have sort of given up dressing like women. Most of us just wear, whatever, not skirts, not dresses, except on very dressy occasions. So I don't know. I might tell this lighting designer to go upscale casual.
Yes, upscale casual. They would call that California casual. It's like, I'm going to a wedding, my niece's wedding, and the invitations came out and they said black tie optional. And I said, okay, what does that mean? That means, okay, should I wear a tuxedo? Or it's got to be something really nice. So my brother goes out because he's the father of the bride and buys a tuxedo, which is the right thing to do. Then they decided, because the groom was dressing casually, that they were going to take the whole black tie thing off. So my brother is stuck with a tuxedo. So anyway, don't wear a tuxedo unless it's opening night.
He can come see you play at the club next week.
But the funny thing is that my first show at La Scala, right? It was like my first European debut, right? This was it. I was at La Scala on a world premiere of the show. And I've decided, okay, it's La Scala, and I'm going to dress in a black tie, get a new tuxedo, the whole bit. I show up, and there were only two people on opening night wearing tuxedos, and that was the conductor and me.
And you were standing in the pit going, send me in, coach.
And Paul Curran turns to me. He says, people are going to think you're the conductor when you take a curtain call.
Or the waiter.
Okay, getting back to the question.
I have a different twist on this. And David was knocking at the door, but he didn't go there. Okay. I am designing my first real professional show. Okay, here's the ticket. If you're not used to wearing leather shoes, if you're not used to wearing a sport coat, you're going to be terribly uncomfortable and look goofy. You're not going to be comfortable in your skin. You're going to have enough on your mind and enough pressure without wondering, is my tie knot correctly? So I would dress clean, whatever that means. Maybe if you like blue jeans, go buy a brand new pair of blue jeans. If your Def Leppard shirt has 4 holes in it, maybe that bad boy goes in the garbage can and you go down and get yourself a nice t-shirt or something. But I think you need to be comfortable. And if you're not used to wearing a tie or things like that, you're just going to be miserable for the 3 or 4 days you're in it.
Well, I think that's what David meant when he said be yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, and also I must tell you, speaking of Paul Curran, today's Paul's birthday. Happy birthday, Paul. We love you. I got to tell you a quick Paul Curran story because it has to do with dressing. And that is that we were doing a show, I believe it was it was Lulu at the Lyric at Chicago. And it was this beautiful set designed by Kevin Knight, another dear friend. And it was raked. The set was raked. And I believe that we had some sort of formica on the floor. Right? I mean, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful design, but it was a plastic floor. And at the very end, for people who don't know the show, Jack the Ripper kills Lulu. And there's blood everywhere. I mean, there's like blood running down this raked floor. And we were going to go out and take our curtain call, and they had no time to clean up the blood. So that Paul was wearing some very slippery shoes. And I told Paul, I said, hey, when we go out for curtain call, be real careful. Be real careful because you may go flying into some blood. And sure enough, when we got, we made our entrance from the up center door, and I grabbed a hold of him just in case he slipped. He kind of did, but he didn't fall, thank God. But it could be dangerous. And that gets to my point. When you're focusing, when you go for focus, no matter how you dress, make sure you have good shoes. because you're going to be going up and down rakes. You may be climbing stairs. You may be doing a lot of different things while you're focusing. So you got to be safe. So make sure, you can dress however you want, but make sure your shoes are really good. And also think that, well, once I get out into the house and I start designing the show, I really don't need good shoes. That's not true, because there are going to be times when you're going to have to get off the table and get on stage because you're looking for a light or there's something that you need to deal with on stage. So whatever shoes you wear, make sure that they are comfortable and safe.
Speaking about slippery surfaces, I was involved with a ballet production one time and sitting in the audience, and there was some lovely dress rehearsal, lovely snow coming down, and the ballerinas were coming in one by one they slipped, one right after the other, because apparently whatever that faux snow was very, very slippery. That curtain closed, and that was the end of that scene for the day.
And for those listeners at home, since you don't have video, Ellen is doing snow above her head with her fingers. And she did a slip thing with her hand, too, then like a crash.
Oh, you are listening to Light Talk, and today's episode is sponsored by...
She completed the Tour de France on a unicycle. She led the search for Bigfoot on Everest. She said no, not this month, to Oprah. She is the most interesting woman in the world, and she is your special lighting designer. This Christmas, why not give her the best in perfume? From across the pond, here comes the cheeky, rigorous Sheffield. And just in time for the holidays, the cheeky rigor offers 3 new fragrances guaranteed to set her apart from the crowd. Let's start with Fade In. Something changes in the room. You're not sure what it is. Is it the scent of spring rain? The faint aroma of sunflowers? Perhaps mixed with honey. It is a distinctive smell, one that is pleasant and inviting. Then you spot her. Is she walking or floating across the dimly lit room to where you're seated? Confident and relaxed, she leans over, close to your face, and hands you a note. Strange, your hands are trembling. It is an expensive handmade paper, perhaps from Turkey, dusted with her scent. She softly whispers, "Here are the cue changes for tonight's show." Fade In, the scent that slips into the control booth. Next, we present Ignite. The first time you really noticed the scent, it was floating down the street just outside the stage door. It was a strangely familiar scent, but you couldn't quite place it. Its owner was wrapped in it. You had 10 seconds to take it all in before the two of them, woman and fragrance, disappeared around the corner. Fortunately, her assistant was not so fast. It is the scent of Ignite. That's right. Clara wore it. The librarian wore it. Your mother wore it. And now the cheeky rigger introduces our classic scent of Ignite. Ignite, to give life or energy, to spark a flame, to burn. A flame is good if you need warmth. A flame is bad if you're in a fireworks factory. And so it is with Ignite. Will you be caressed or consumed by passion? And our final fragrance for the winter season, perhaps our finest. It was born from the tears of angels. It can be worn any time between sunrise and sunset. It's Tungsten 3400. She leaves her studio for a cup of coffee to find a young red-faced PA blocking her way. "We're shooting here today." "I need my morning coffee." She steps around him and walks through the shot. In the distance, she hears, "Who are you? I must have you in all my shots. Come back." Her phone rings. She tells her agent, "I said I would get back to Disney when I have the time. Good day, sir." She arrives at the focus call and tells the steward, "I'm feeling a bit peckish. Be a good lad and bring me a single brown fig, 4 ounces of fresh water from a glacier, and a blue Sharpie." Tungsten is tough. It has a melting point of 3,400 degrees, just like her. But you already knew that. She broke the glass ceiling and doesn't need it to be patched, gentlemen. Tungsten 3400 says, I love you as you are, never change. Overwhelmed by the selection? Which is right for your life partner? Who can say? Just order all three, and the cheeky rigger of Sheffield will throw in a bottle of stinky shoe on the bus for you, my friend. Merry Christmas, and God bless us, everyone. The cheeky rigger of Sheffield. We make underwear, too.
Wow. Steve, we're talking about alternative careers. Well, I think you have a career ahead of you in writing copy for J. Peterman.
J. Peterman is one of my favorite catalogs. I love them. Now, I am working on a new series for Light Talk. I didn't want to spring this today, but I'm working on this, and I'm not quite sure if we can pull it off. But it's going to be a short story, B-movie form, that the Light Talk brothers and sisters will perform in 5 serial episodes, each episode being about 3 minutes. And it's going to revolve around Danger Man, the secret identity of a lighting designer who solves problems.
Danger. It could be Danger Woman.
Cool.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Let's get out of here.
And now, back to Light Talk.
Well, the sound of those rabid ducks tells us that once again it's time for Let's Talk About. And today's Let's Talk About is all about how are lighting companies strategizing to survive and hopefully thrive during and after the pandemic. Wow. So, this is interesting because we're coming up on LDI, where we're going to see a lot of lighting manufacturers there. And they have had a huge amount of challenges, just trying to survive these past, 18 months. God, it's been so long. And now we're getting back up to speed. But boy, there are a lot of challenges that we don't know when they're going to be solved. So I'm going to sort of kick this off to Ellen because she has her, she knows what's happening from the manufacturing point of view. What do you think, Ellen? I mean, what's going on?
I think there's good news and there's bad news. I mean, the good news is that, yes, things are coming back. Concerts, festivals, cruise ships, theme parks, they're all up and running again. The sort of, the coconut telegraph has gone from, oh my God, I'm desperate for work, to everybody's hiring. So that's sort of good news. Some companies that were either laid off or furloughed employees and they were down to 25 to 30% of their workforce seem to be back to up between 75% to 100%. So people are getting back to work, which is really good. There's a lot of pictures of, the rental companies showing full rooms of equipment getting prepped and teched to go out. So I think that's all really good. But one of the real questions for the manufacturers is, okay, if they've spent money during the pandemic on R&D and they have exciting new products to reveal at LDI, how do they get those manufactured on a large scale? Because there's a few things going on that have happened during the pandemic that are real challenges for manufacturers. The supply chain seems to be interrupted in China and other places. So instead of saying, oh, I'll ship that out to you today, sir, you're getting a 6-week, 8-week, 12-week, 18-week delay in some parts. And the other thing is shipping has become apparently very, very expensive. There's some people I know who are saying, hey, let's get a couple ships and a couple containers. We could probably do this cheaper. But when you look into it, you really can't. And as Steve noted before, Eric Loader from Elation is a really good example of people who have gear that's come in from abroad and is stuck in a container ship in a harbor where they can't get the people to get to the port to unload them. So I think the manufacturers are facing a lot of new challenges that they didn't have before. And then the question is, the rental shops that have not rented anything for 18 months, do they have the budget to buy all the new gear to meet the needs of the designers who are going to come to LDI and say, oh, wow, look at that. Fixture XYZ, I'll take 150 for my next tour. We don't have them yet. So I think there's a lot of challenges that are going to have to come, that are coming up that are new. On another front, I think that the companies that really sort of survived this best two words sort of pop into mind, and they're sort of hackneyed at this point, but diversification and pivoting. And companies that were diversified to begin with were able to, shift a lot of work from the theatrical side of things and the concert touring side of things to the other things that they do, be it medical, military, churches, academic, whatever. And then pivoting, a lot of people just found new projects that they could put their people to work on. So those companies should sort of be applauded, I think, for coming through this in a new way and not just, being limited to what it is they were doing. It's been a tough time for a lot of people. I heard that some companies were selling off used gear to some of the used lighting companies, and now that they're ramping up in such a rapid rate, they're buying it back.
Well, I'm trying to get some things repaired, and I can't get them repaired. The shops here in Dallas are trying to ramp up to get back out on the road, and they're putting all energy into that. So you want something fixed, go to the back of the line, because we have other things we've got to get ready to go.
Interesting. You can look at, what you're talking, Ellen, about buying back used equipment and things like that. You look at the rental car industry. When the pandemic started, all these rental car companies sold off their inventories. Because they didn't know how long it was going to last. That's having a car there not being used. They're losing money. So they sold off all their, not all of them, but a lot of their inventory. And then when the travel started to pick up again, it was like impossible to get a rental car. I rent a car every year when I go up to Colorado, to Central City. And normally I rent a car for like 6 weeks. And it usually costs me about $1,000 for a 6-week rental. I got my reservation in early. So I was able to get I think it was like $1,200 instead of $1,000. I was only there for like 4 or 5 weeks this time. But if I had waited any longer, it was like $3,000, $4,000. It was crazy, the amount of money. And that's because they sold off their inventory. It's going to be interesting to see what the rental companies are doing for these big Broadway shows right now. If they're charging the same amounts of money that they did before, or if they're going with the inflation that's happening just because of the scarcity of the inventory.
That raises another point, which is that the economics of Broadway are something that's really under discussion a bit. And I sort of look at that and it's like, the unions are going to want more money. You can't do more performances. You can't add seats to the theater. You can't pay people less. And ticket prices were absurdly high when they closed down. So there's not a lot of leeway in there. And post-pandemic, I suppose, looks like the billionaires are putting their money into outer space, but would they fund a Broadway show? Broadway is one of those weird places. I guess it's like the stock market. You could put 10 million in and close on opening night.
Well, the thing we're forgetting about too is pre-pandemic, Broadway was bringing in more revenue than all the combined sports teams in the metropolitan area. When you look at the Knicks and the Yankees and the Mets and the Giants, all those, Broadway was bringing in more money than all those professional teams were generating.
That's interesting.
No, but think about it. Broadway's doing what, 8 shows a week, right? And that's each show with the very expensive tickets. Yeah, I believe that. I believe Broadway would be bringing in more money. The interesting thing here with Broadway is I think they're going to survive through broadcast rights. I think all these shows are now going to offer streaming of their shows. And even if they only charge like Disney Plus, charge at the time was like $8 that you could see Hamilton instead of spending $700 to see Hamilton. Right. But they got millions of viewers from all over the world paying, $9 or whatever it's going to cost. That's a lot of money.
Well, what is the economic equation for that? Who gets the money? The Broadway producer, the actors, the Disney streaming people, the writer, the musicians? What's the cut up there?
Well, I think it's probably individually negotiated.
We'll also think about concessions on that. All the marketing of albums and tour shirts, and we forget that concessions is so much part of the rock and roll industry too. It's great you're making a ticket on a seat, but some real money is being made out in the hallways with everything that's being sold and marketed.
Do the bands get a cut of that? Like, it's like when an off-Broadway show really makes it. And what is the deal that the theater makes? I mean, I don't really know how it works, but I understand that the Public Theater was pretty smart when Chorus Line, did the Hamilton people, Public, obviously did Hamilton first, and shows like Hadestown that moved from, I don't know, New York Theater Workshop to Broadway. And, what are those deals? And, there's a lot of people involved in those things.
Sure.
But I think you're right. I think that, Come From Away is about ready to be a film.
Yep, exactly.
And the Hamilton thing was obviously very, very successful. In the Heights looks wonderful, the film version.
Right. Jesus Christ Superstar, although that production was just for TV, but it was a live production.
Right. Well, they did a lot of those. They did Grease. They did Hairspray, some of which got better reviews than others.
Some weren't so good.
Yes, but the thing that you notice is they got better and better with either with each production. They were starting to understand what they were doing.
I just thought, we talked about on the show before, the Jesus Christ Superstar John Legend was fantastic. It was just brilliantly done. But you talk about concessions, Steve. You can still have concessions on the stream. You just go off, there's a commercial that says, hey, you want your shirt for Jesus Christ Superstar? Just click on this website.
Oh, that's my point.
Buy a shirt.
That's my point exactly. So I'm reaching a few hundred people or 1,000 people in New York with Hamilton that I'm selling my T-shirts to. But when I'm broadcasting in 32 countries, all of a sudden, it's the face of rock and roll. Do the Stones really want to go on tour? Or do they want to do one show and it's broadcast around the planet?
I think it's great, personally. I mean, I love live theater, don't get me wrong. But the more people that experience theater, whether it be live or brilliantly done, in a video way like they did with Hamilton, the better. Because there are more people getting the message. And that's really what it's all about, is telling the story. So you reach much more people. And that, I believe, is how Broadway is going to survive. Because I can't see it happening any other way.
There's another question now too, which is that New York has instigated a sanitary pass, whatever you call it, this Excelsior pass, and you need to prove that you're vaccinated or have had a negative PCR COVID test within 72 hours. So it's complicated. How are they going to test all that? And there's a lot of new parameters going into this.
Yeah, it's a lot going on. Earlier, someone mentioned about, how do the deals made? I can tell you, again, I haven't done Broadway, but I've done a lot of large opera, scale opera that is sometimes turned into DVDs and sometimes streamed. And usually those contracts, are set early on before you even open the first production. And it tells you, we're thinking about doing this on video, and here's the contract, and then you have your agent look at it, and then you make changes. I know from a designer's point of view, that's usually how it works. And if they do stream the show or turn it into a DVD, then you'll get a certain, rate that you've negotiated.
Right.
That's how at least it works in the opera world.
Right.
Okay, so I don't know. Did we answer the question? I think that was really interesting because, a lot goes on. How are they surviving? And I look at ETC, and during the pandemic, they came out with the new Source 4. I thought that was kind of interesting to make that move.
Absolutely, and they did a great marketing campaign for it.
Right.
And who's buying it?
Right. Who's buying it? I don't know. I don't know anyone who bought it yet, but I haven't, that doesn't mean anything.
Right. Well, we hope at LDI there'll be a long line of people with checkbooks and they have their order book and, it'll be a happy ending.
And do us a favor, when you come to the live broadcast, the Lumen Brothers and Sisters, Light Talk, bring your checkbooks too, because we take checks.
And what are you selling?
Well, we're giving away free swag, but we also have some special items that we may be auctioning off.
Unsafe for dishwasher coffee mugs. Those are collector's items.
They are collector's items. We have some of Stan K's clothing that he's coming with that we may be auctioning off. So.
Let's see. I hear that Steve is publishing the first collected annotated version of the Light Talk scripts, episodes 1 through 231.
Oh my God!
And we will be there along with Ann McMills, will be pushing her books, and she'll be autographing for a minimal charge. And we'll be doing the same.
For a minimal
we'll
charge,
be doing the same thing.
yes.
We'll sign our scripts for you.
You can get photographs of you and Ann McMills at the book table signing. She doesn't know about this yet, does she?
We probably should cut that out. We'll get some hate mail.
No, we'll leave it in. I'm sure Ann will love it. Ann will love it.
I don't know.
So, yes. So bring your checkbooks. We do take checks, okay? And we also take cryptocurrency. That's a whole nother story. So anyway, Steve has our last question of the day.
Yes, and it's a dark and foreboding question. It's a question we've all had to answer. Ronnie in Oregon writes, my dad just asked me, what is my university theater training program actually teaching me? And am I learning anything of any real value to face life? Well, you have your dad called David Jacques. I'm going to throw three things at you that you can throw at your dad. I think what theater is training you to do is be open and receptive to criticism. You're going to get positive and negative criticism your entire life, and you need to understand how to listen to it and consider the source and weigh the value of the criticism. So I think that's an important life lesson. You cannot be in theater and not understand and get some value from teamwork, working with a group of people all headed toward one end game. So teamwork is something you can learn. And finally, theater teaches you how to deal with all kinds of people. And people have good things for you, and they have bad things for you, and they're difficult to work with, they're easy to work with. But you're going to be dealing with people your entire life. And being able to start in this collection, go by a theater department. It's like from all corners of the world there, with all political agendas, all social issues. These are going to be people that are going to help you, face life as you move on. If you can't survive in a theater program, you're going to just not have basic skills you need. So criticism, teamwork, listening to people's ideas that you're in opposition with, these are all skills, whether you move into business or education or the medical profession. This is just a good foundation degree to get. That's what I think. What about you, David?
Those are very important skills. Absolutely. Two more on my list: crisis management and improvisational skills. We are dealing with crises all the time in the theater, especially if you're a lighting designer. You're out at the table, and everything that all the plans you had and all the plans the director had and the set designer had for this transition do not work. It just doesn't work. The transition's not working. And all of a sudden we're thinking, oh my God, what are we going to do? And your job as a lighting designer is to stay cool, and which is what I call crisis management, and say, okay, how can we make this work? And you figure it out, and you stay calm and you do it. And a lot of it requires the skills that Steve was talking about, listening to people and teamwork. All that is really important, because as a team, you're usually dealing trying to solve these issues. And the other thing is improvisational skills, because you have to be open to improvising when these crises occur, but also just during the process of the show itself. From the very first time you read the script and you start talking to your colleagues, through rehearsals and through on-stage rehearsals and dress rehearsals and all that, you have to improvise sometimes, because the show is evolving. That's just the nature of our business. So your lighting skills need to evolve as well. And if you know that, then, if you can deal with crisis management and be a good improviser, you could work almost in any industry. Ellen, what do you think?
Well, I agree. And I also think that, you touched on this about teamwork, but collaboration is really, really important. And I think that it teaches you to do that, wherever you are. And if you don't stay in the theater, but, you're active on a board of directors, or you're active at your church, or you're going to run a summer camp, or any job that you have, I think that collaborative spirit is really important. And I also think that while a lot of theater people fail at a good life-work balance. There's a lot of conversation now, which we can discuss another week, about the 10 out of 12s and the really, really long days, and saying, oh my God, I just worked an 80-hour week. Is that a badge of honor, or are you crazy? But, I see it in the trade show business sometimes. It's like, I know in the theater, if the curtain is going up at 8:05, at 7:59, you might be on stage finishing that last drop that needed a little touch up, or focusing that last light. And the stage manager finally says, David, get that ladder off the stage. Places, please. But there's no like preset boundaries. Like, I work 9 to 12 and then I go to lunch from 12 to 1. And then, the union sets some of those kinds of rules. But if it's a weekend, it's a weekend. And I think it's a healthier balance. But you have to make sure you take time off, that you take care of yourself, and you don't get, wrapped up in this, oh my God, we're going to work all these hours, but not being afraid to stay late if you have to.
And one final thing, all of these skills will also enable you to do a podcast.
Yes.
And there you go.
There you go. And that's really all that matters at this point. Well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tells us that once again, you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on Spotify, iTunes, Google, YouTube, livedesignonline.com, Amazon Prime Music, and just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website on lighttalk.org for future guests, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to the podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
if you do decide to litigate, the law firm of Flecht, Flocked, Flare, and Glare and their paralegal Snoot will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers and SISTAH, coming to you from Long Beach, Philadelphia, and just left of the Chisholm Trail.
And be sure to join us next week when Stan, Steve, and I pontificate about more useless things and crazy shenanigans in our industry.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
Toodles.
Light Talk.